of those. You might know my uncle is the authoritarian, convicted criminal con man currently wrecking the country from the safety of the Oval Office, but for the vast majority of my life, I've just known him as a freaking loser. So, unlike most political commentators, I come at this with insider knowledge. I know exactly who Donald is, and I'm not afraid to say it, and I will never pull punches. Why? Because the stakes are too high, and the media has been complacent for far too long.
It was just another harmless TV spot, until Mary Trump dropped the match and blew the entire Trump ego factory sky high. Forget tense family dinners. This was psychological carpet bombing from a niece who's read more about the man than he's probably read in his life. Donald never saw it coming, mostly because self-awareness isn't part of his skill set. But when your own blood goes prime time with receipts, therapy notes, and family skeletons you thought were buried somewhere on a golf course, that's not just a bad day. That's checkmate, Donnie.
200,000 Americans had already died by the time this interview aired, and they did so as the direct result of Donald's willful and malicious inaction. But for him, we would not have become so divided. But for him, a simple life-saving maneuver like wearing a mask would not have become politicized. But for him, we would not have suffered a mass casualty event in this country.
Donald Trump getting roasted by his own niece is a kind of poetic justice that would have Shakespeare skipping supper just to watch. Forget party politics for a second. Imagine being so unbearable your own DNA volunteers to publicly body slam you repeatedly. Mary didn't just throw shade. She turned the sun off and parked a total eclipse right over Mar-a-Lago.
Been even more erratic than usual this week, which is saying something, launching us into an illegal, unconstitutional, and unauthorized conflict with Iran and leaving everyone, including his own allies, waiting for his next move. But now, he's invoking a new power in order to excuse his behavior. A god he does not believe in.
And here's the kicker. She's not some random pundit or a social media loudmouth. She's a Trump. Same name, same DNA. This isn't a branch falling off the family tree. This is a trunk snapping in half, catching fire, and filing a lawsuit for emotional damages.
We've all seen the footage coming out of Los Angeles. Journalists are getting shot. ICE agents are showing up in civilian clothes and masks and abducting people. This cannot be ignored. This is not a drill. What's happening here is the Trump regime is trying to turn Los Angeles and specifically, and the United States in general, into a...
If Karma had its own Netflix true crime series, Donald would be the headliner, and Mary would be the unfiltered narrator flipping through piles of damning receipts like bedtime stories to the Department of Justice. But instead of fairy tales, it's all shady loans, balloon-sized egos, and deep-seated daddy issues glazed with spray tan.
Well, understandably, the backlash was swift, not just because invoking religion to justify bombing the Middle East is offensive. I mean, just think Crusades. But because Donald is not the least religious person ever to hold office, he's not religious at all, despite his occasional attempts to pretend otherwise. Something I happen to know.
And honestly, that spray then should have been subpoenaed years ago. It's seen things, traumatizing things. But even that pales compared to what America endured for 4 years. A presidency that felt like watching someone play chess with Cheetos and a Ouija board.
Donald is, and always has been, a frightened little boy deep down. And I actually believe that when he goes through this process next week or in the coming days, if he does, as he should, as all of them should, because everybody else in his position has to, it might actually start breaking through that there's nothing.
Mary looked at that circus and said, nope, time go public. She wrote a book, launched a podcast, hit the talk shows, and basically became the Greek chorus narrating America's biggest political tragedy. And it wasn't fame chasing, it was damage control. When your uncle tweets policy like a raccoon on an iPhone, speaking up isn't politics, it's public service. The irony? Donald built his image on family values, gold-plated and nepotism-flavored. But the one relative with actual psychological credentials came out and said, politely but unmistakably, this man is a red flag wrapped in clown makeup. Not her exact words, but the energy was crystal clear. This is a guy who thinks empathy is an Italian appetizer and diplomacy is monopoly with only Trump Tower on the board. Mary, with her PhD, basically staged a nationwide intervention. PowerPoint slides and all.
Years, days, into the Trump regime. And Donald is still doing what he does best. Lying, being stupid. No, actually, I know it's a stiff competition, but in this case it's grifting. He has tried to sell everything from steaks, Bibles, for God's sakes, without being struck by lightning, to coins, to non-fungible tokens, guitars, presidential trading cards.
And she wasn't lobbying guesses from the cheap seats. She had front row tickets to the haunted mansion of Trump dysfunction, holiday dinners that needed emotional support animals. Imagine carving turkey while someone brags about bankruptcies like their Cub Scout badges. Donald's public image was a giant balloon of success. And Mary walked with a pen and said, "Let's see how much air is in here." Spoiler, it popped, confetti spelling out tax fraud everywhere. She didn't have to get loud, just pointed out calmly that his empire was built on smoke, mirrors, and a dad who played financial fairy godmother with infinite cheat codes. If Trump were a product, the label would read, "Assembly required," just add inherited wealth and delusion.
Up this morning, there were headlines across the country sounding the alarm, making it clear to the American people that we are entering, indeed have entered, very dangerous territory. In the midst of this ongoing, intentionally created emergency, this report from CNBC.
President Trump says Coca-Cola will be updating its American ingredients list. That news coming in a Truth Social post from the president, who is a noted fan of Diet Coke. He said, "I've been speaking to Coca-Cola about using real cane sugar in Coke in the United States, and they have agreed to do so." He added, "It's just better."
Oh, I have an idea. Let's change it from high fructose corn syrup, which quite frankly is very bad for you. Not that cane sugar is that much better, but let's use cane sugar instead, and we can rename it. It's going to come to me, I promise.
Underneath it all, manipulation, approval chasing wrapped in gold-plated insecurity. And just to illustrate the absurdity, CNBC once reported Trump bragging about getting Coca-Cola to switch to cane sugar in U.S. Coke. His big pitch? It's just better. That's the man's idea of reform. Swapping one kind of sugar.
So, why, when Donald said, "It is what it is," did that send a chill down my spine? Well, for normal people, that phrase means something like, "Things are terrible. Sadly, there's nothing I can do about it. So, it is what it is. We just have to accept it and move on." In my family, that is not at all what it meant. What that phrase meant was, "Yeah, you're going through a bad time. I could help you, but I don't give a shit."
So why did Trump's "it is what it is" send chills down Mary's spine? Because in normal language it means, yeah, this is bad, but we can't change it. In Trump speak, it translates to, "I could help you, but I don't care." That's a family code. Apathy wrapped in smugness. His whole brand is alpha male dominance and fake success. But Mary, with her degree and intact moral compass, calmly exposed as untreated trauma in the suit. She didn't just call him out. She diagnosed a whole clan. Nepotism? Exposed. Tax scams? Uncovered. Emotional blackmail? Labeled. She basically told America, maybe the guy who treats empathy like a conspiracy theory shouldn't control nuclear codes.
You every single week. Daily deep dives into the latest breaking news.
This week on this election, I was actually believe I think I would have won California, I would have won New York.
Wow. Okay. This is insane. A live weeknight breakdown of everything Donald doesn't want you to know. And this is an issue all because Donald Trump is a thin-skinned baby who couldn't handle the fact that Kamala Harris came across looking better in an interview.
Donald's life is one big reality show. Mary's a behind-the-scenes producer who finally hit mute and flipped the camera to reveal the messy control room. Unpaid bills, shredded ethics, chaos everywhere. And now, he's still ranting about which hunts from a golden toilet, while she's quietly dismantling him, appearance by appearance. It's not a fight, it's an academic exorcism. She doesn't raise her voice. The facts do that for her. And Donald hates it. Because you can't tweet away decades of dysfunction when your own niece is building a museum of your red flags.
By dropping bombs on Iran Saturday after claiming he'd take 2 weeks to think about how to proceed. Then came his speech. After launching the unprovoked attack, he invoked God multiple times. Take a look.
And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless.
This isn't revenge. It's catharsis. For her. For America. For anyone who's ever watched a mediocre man fail upward while gaslighting everyone else into applause. Mary might not have sought fame, but she earned it by speaking truth with poise and science. Sometimes a hero doesn't wear a cape. Sometimes she wears glasses, holds a doctorate, and says, this is what happens when unresolved trauma gets nuclear codes. Donald's still dodging lawsuits like it's a sport, but Mary's locking the laundry room before the dirty laundry ignites and burns the whole block down.
So remember when Donald promised that countries were lining up to make beautiful trade deals with us? Well, speaking of ticking clocks, it has been 4 months, and the only deal we've seen is a tax break on Rolls-Royces, which I'm sure is extraordinarily helpful to about 0.001% of the population. So, unless you're a British aristocrat or a Bond villain, sucks to be you. Even Fox is starting.
And that ego, massive enough for its own zip code and a Florida voter ID. Mary didn't come in swinging insults. She came with surgical precision, poking just enough holes to ground the blimp. She brought the one weapon narcissists can't fight. Facts. How he was raised. How his father shaped him. How emotional stunting turns into a political disaster when you hand a podium. She laid it all out, therapy session style, for an entire nation. History will remember Trump for chaos and scandal, but Mary, she'll be remembered as the one who stood inside the castle and said, this kingdom is built on lies, insecurity, and unpaid contractors. And while he's still flailing in legal quicksand, she remains calm, the therapist who escaped the asylum, then came back to write the case study.